Welcome back to Shadow Era A to Z. Last time we did our Rush Elad aggro build. This time we are doing our Ellie aggro build. Two aggro decks, one after the other. Now, as you know, aggro decks are typically the easiest decks to play when you're starting off in a game. Shadow Era is no exception. So let's hop in and check out Elementalis. Alright, so this list is a little different than lists I've used in the past for Elementalis. I'll go over those differences afterwards, don't you worry. So, 23 allies. We got a lot of 4 costs here for allies. Keeps things very consistent for your pulls. We have 4 Cage Savage, 4 Feasterlings, 4 Stardust Transfuser, 4 Voracious Arachnid, 4 Stardust Extractor, and 3 Stardust Amplifiers. Next, 12 abilities for the deck, 2 Permeate, 2 Bloodthirsty, 4 Power Surge, 2 Energy Discharge, and 2 Mind Controls. Finally, to finish it up, 4 items, 4 Gold Laced Shield. So what's different in my deck here? A few things. First, past builds I've done has been Rapacious Vermin to have that extra little control in the deck because you don't run tech for Elementalis, so Vermin would do that. I went with Feasterling instead because I wanted more early damage onto the opposing hero, because Elementalis only would have limited draw. If set up right, you really need board to have draw going, and Feasterling is much more capable of getting you board than Rapacious Vermin is. So I went with Feasterling instead, get that board control. Second, normally 4 Permeates. This time I went 2 Permeate and 2 Bloodthirsty because I felt like the draw was a little short. It was just a little inconsistent. So I dropped 2 of the Permeates for 2 Bloodthirsty instead. Feels pretty good. You can drop it on a Feasterling early, build him right up, give them no choice but to get rid of it. You can still drop it on the good old Voracious Arachnid combo. If you get that combo going, your opponent's going to have a very hard time coming back. So again, still like Bloodthirsty, only 2 though, okay? Don't need more than that. Next, because I'm not using Vermin, I have no way to deal with enemy attachments like Crippling Blow or Captured Prey or Zale's Hymn. So instead of 4 Mind Control, I'm doing 2 Mind Control and 2 Energy Discharge. So yeah, you're going to be taking some damage from Discharge, you're going to be taking some damage from Feasterling, but this is a face race. This is an aggro deck. Your job is to get their health 0 before you, and if you play these cards right, you taking this extra damage is not going to be a big deal because your allies hit very, very hard. Okay, so it's not a problem taking this extra damage. So those are the differences for this deck. I feel like it does give it more aggro, especially the energy discharges, because you can spend less time dealing with their board. Just wipe them out, take the damage, put more damage to their hero's face. I like it. You know, some people do, some people don't. And you can always combo it with a 1-cost Cage Savage on turn 6. Just pay 6 resources and now take the damage, wipe out their board, keep going at their face. Again, your mission here is to just get them to 0 as quickly as you can. Okay, let's go talk about the matchups. Alright, now if you remember back in my Boris video, I said Boris is nearly almost always auto win against Elementalis. Boris will forever be your hardest matchup. Next hardest would probably be Garth, because Garth has a cheap ability for dealing with board as well. Garth normally rolls with Sinkholes, so it gets rid of those Feasterlings. Cage Savage does not get rid of your Transfuser, won't even deal damage to it because of that Steadfast. But against your Cage Savage and Feasterling setup, Sinkholes are going to get rid of it. Also rolls with Ankle Breaker, sometimes Night Owls too, so it's not Night Owls, Sword Thief, also Night Owl. Night Owl on stealth can be pretty annoying. So I would say the next one again would be Garth because of that cheap board control ability that he has available, and he also plays in the mid-range just like Boris does. So that's going to be a difficult matchup. Easier matchups, basically late game decks. Maybe with the exception of Victor, because Victor's ability comes online pretty early. Victor has some strong control tools as well on his side. Normally Rose with a couple of poison arrows in there. Gambits are going to negate your health boost ability. We'll have a more difficult time dealing with Amplifier than Boris, because Boris has that Dragon's Tooth. And since you have no way of getting rid of that Dragon's Tooth, Amp is going to be going pretty quickly. So if you're playing against a Warrior, or you're playing against Victor, and Victor has a Shadow Energy, and you have to play your Amp, make sure you have your ability saved up, or make sure you have a Gold Lace Shield on board. Make sure that you can pop Amp's ability right away, his passive, to get whatever value you can out of Amp. Okay? Victor will have, again, a harder time dealing with you than Boris will. But Victor does have tools to deal with you. What else? You should play very strongly against mages. You're an aggro deck too, so even if they're an aggro deck, they're going to have a harder time because your allies get very fat, and their spells are going to have a hard time dealing with you. So mages should be okay for you to fight against, as long as you have your start. You know how RNG goes. If they get their start, you don't have your early allies. Doesn't matter. They got their damage off. They're going to burn you away. So that's not going to feel good. But if all things are equal, you should be able to deal with it. Vess is kind of a 50-50 too. The attachments can be annoying, but Enslave the Beast doesn't hurt you as much as long as your allies are buffed. But Vess is also very fast, so Vess can keep up your board. Again, from my experience, it's kind of like a 50-50 setup there. With Vess. If Ellie doesn't have the ideal start that she needs, and Vess has the right start, Vess typically rolls with that matchup. So that should be okay. Badu you should be doing well against, even without item tech. Badu does have a couple of perfect shots in his deck, but he typically has a hard time dealing with a big board. Undead Badu would have an easier time to fight against you than, like, say, Bobcat Badura would, because he has those horrors and he has some extra damage from hand to put onto your allies. So, yeah, I would say more times out of not, you should beat Baduru. You should be able to beat Amber, because Amber plays more mid-range aggro. Doesn't have as much control as Boris does. So you should do better against Amber than Boris, but Amber is still going to have that edge, because Amber is still going to have cripples and retreats and seductress and marksmans. So you will lose more often against Amber, but not as often against Boris. So if you're playing in a tournament where the opponent has a Boris Amber that you're playing against, and you have to play Elementalis, you'll have a better chance playing against that Amber than you would against Boris, you know? So maybe you have Ellie, Zal, right? Try to get that Ellie matched up against Amber and try to get that Zal matched up against Boris. That'll give you much better odds of playing that matchup. Because you saw last World Championship, Amber beat 2 Elementalis decks on the way up, even with Vermins in there. There you go, you know? So again, so I would say that's a good summary of matchups for you guys. Again, it's an aggro deck. Most mid-range decks are going to do well against you, and you should do well against most late-game decks. Zana would be interesting, though, because of those tidal waves. Zana has the ability to wipe your board, regardless of how much health your allies have. So hopefully you get all your damage in before the tidal wave, and hopefully you can fill your board back up quickly. But you do have a couple of mind controls in there to help you against, like, Crimson Dust. But again, Crimson Dust are all going to do 2 damage overall, because she's still going to get healed when it dies, you know. And it's not going to do, it's going to do 1 damage with Adler, you know. So she is pretty built to deal with mind controls. So ideally you would use your mind control against, like, Nathanius, you know. So there you go. Hope you guys enjoyed the Elementalis video, and I'll see you next time.